What's going on, everybody? My name is Linwood. Thank y'all so much for being here. I hope you guys are excited because I am. Why? Because this next hour is so jam-packed full of hope, positivity, optimism, gratitude, mental toughness, and an attitude check, baby. So if I were you, I'd get ready for it by pulling up a chair, pulling up a couple of shots, letting your hair down, kicking your shoes off, but just relax because this will be the best hour that you have received, and I'm excited for it. Let's go!
Joseph JAFFE is not famous. I'm kinda, but I'm Ross, you know. JAFFE is nothing more than a zombie extra, you know. Joseph JAFFE is not famous.
But he's officially. Well, Peter, you might be the first person on this planet that has ever shut me up for this long. Good old Heraclitus, I tell you, that wild and crazy guy.
If I came to you and I gave you $10,000 for 20% of the company,
deal. Yeah. So, is that a verbal?
Younger than us, sorry to say, Joseph.
What, younger than 20?
Joe, we're just trying to help you because clearly you've lost control of the conversation.
I never, you know what? With all due respect, I never had control of the situation. Doesn't mean I'm overgone. What doesn't kill me makes you stronger.
Look at you! You are insane!
How did I do that?
You're insane.
Well, welcome everybody. It is, wow, it's Tuesday, October 12th, and it is time for another episode of Not Famous Late Night JAFFE. It is time to give away JAFFE coin. I mean, immediately within the first 2 minutes, I'm giving you JAFFE coin. All you got to do is point your phone at that QR code, follow the instructions, and get yourself a JAFFE coin worth $7.40 today. And who knows what it will be worth tomorrow. I am playing in with some African music after last night's amazing song from The Lion King, from Devontae Burst, from our creator. I just felt inspired and I wanted to get back to my African roots. Why not? I'm also excited that 2 of these campaigns have been redeemed, and it's amazing. You know, I said that I was done consulting over the events of the last 18 months. I just said I'm done. I don't want to be a consultant anymore. I am a talk show host. I want to be a talk show host, and the only way to get an hour of my time is through my creator coin, and it's been redeemed twice, and I'm very, very happy about it. It makes me proud. It also makes me proud that it is Vermont Day. Why am I even obscuring the beautiful Vermont? Because when you think about African music, you think of Vermont, don't you? But happy National Vermont Day for all you Green Mountainers out there, you coffee drinkers. Mr. Bob Farnham, I don't know where you are these days. I miss you, my friend. Come back to the show. Glenn is here and he says he loves the coinage. Glenn, stop using this. Every night, Glenn now, he's figured out, wait a second, if I watch the show live every night, I get myself $7.50 and I get inspired. I get educated. I get to experience. Here he is, Bob. Happy National Vermont Day, my friend. You get so much more than just a JAFFE coin. I have to tell you, I am not just smarter. I am richer for the show and for my guests. And I have amazing guests tonight. We should kind of get into them straight away, or at least get close to them. Well, first of all, just to remind you, last week I was in hospital for the 3rd time. This year, it knocked me down 3. I get back 4. I recorded with Robert Rose yesterday, Kate O'Neill on Friday, and I will record JD and Ethan coming up as well. And we will not miss their episodes. They will be back on the show very, very soon. Just look out and follow me on my socials, and you will see, as you will see, and I will say, and I can see him in the green room, that I'm going to call you the famous Mark Moskowitz, but I'm not going to call you the infamous. How about that? We'll go with famous, because everyone is famous on the show. Maybe you can be not famous like me. Tonight, I will extend my moniker to you being not famous. Mark will tell you his story. Mark served time in a federal penitentiary. He's going to tell us the story, and he's going to talk to us about second chances, as I will talk to you about second chances as well. So Mark tonight, Cami tomorrow, and Dr. Rose Phillips live from South Africa at 3 a.m. in the morning, her time. Mark goes by Chief Esteem Officer. I love that. He is the CEO of Moskowitz Industries. He is the CEO of himself, and he is the Chief Esteem Officer. And after Mark, Deborah Bibon. Bonjour, comment ça va? Our creator. She is the CEO and founder of the Healing Heartland, and she will be in the studio, and I cannot wait. Well, let's get into our seated soliloquy. And the soliloquy today, as I alluded to, is called Second Chances. My guest tonight, he got a second chance at rectifying mistakes that he made in his life, and he took it. He grabbed it. My understanding is that he wasn't given a second chance. This wasn't presented to him on a silver platter, and yet it was a gift. He created it. He took total responsibility for his life, his actions, and his happiness. It strikes me that we spend such a disproportionate amount of our time focused on the past, and with it analyzing, psychoanalyzing, overanalyzing the woulda, coulda, shoulda. We tear out our hair and drive ourselves insane, trying to understand that which is not able to be understood. Some of us get downright spiritual, and as a fatalist myself, I take solace in the idea that things happen for a reason, and we may not see it at the time or even in the future. We may never fully grasp the celestial nudge or kick in the nuts that forces us to pause, stop dead in our tracks, change course, or even do a complete 180. Like second impressions, second chances are not exactly do-overs, but perhaps they're even better. A second chance is a clean shot at redemption, an opportunity to right wrongs, improve on ourselves, get it right, or do it better. It doesn't or shouldn't always be about mistakes, or worse, the blame game. And I learned that from last night's guest on the idea of debriefs. Second chances are about as human as humanity itself. Chasing perfection is a fool's game, or is it a fool's errand? Perhaps that's part of the problem. Chasing perfection. And this is compounded with a toxic cocktail of societal, social media, and self-pressure. I've learned to forgive myself. Every day when I put on a show, I forgive myself for coughing. I make mistakes. I used to be so hard on myself, and I still am if I'm being honest. But here's the reality. People don't mind. People don't care. It's like giving a keynote presentation and forgetting your lines or dropping your notes along the way. No one talks about the 30 seconds when you collected yourself and regrouped, even though it felt like a lifetime, an eternity to you at the time. Our entire life is a giant chance at making the most of our time. It is filled with an endless number of second chances. Some are bigger than others. So take them when they present themselves. Make the most of them and keep going. And now it's time to find out about a second chance and meeting Mr. Mark Moskowitz. By the way, I'm coughing so much because I just gave a 2.5-hour lesson to my students at NYU, and I went straight from that into this. Talk about taking it slow, coming out of hospital. But anyway, let's talk about Mark. Mark has had a very interesting life, to put it mildly. He was a professional golfer for a year after college. Then he went to work on Wall Street and eventually was managing a hedge fund. During a spiral in Mark's life, he took money from the fund and eventually wound up in federal prison. It is there where he came to grips with his demons, and he learned about self-esteem and how he struggled with a low self-image his entire life. Now he is spreading his message of owning your own power through speaking engagements, an upcoming book, and performance coaching. Let's bring him on to the show. Mark Moskowitz, welcome to Joseph Jaffe's Not Famous.
Joseph, thank you so much for having me on. Really excited. Great opening.
You are, well, thank you, and you are very welcome. Bob Farnham says, pace yourself. I'm trying, but apparently, my voice packed up at the worst possible time. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
I'll see if I can give it a little bit of rest.
Oh, good. When you tell your story, I'm going to take a break, have a drink. Everything is going to be great.
With honey. Yep.
Even better, if my wife is watching, it will auto magically appear. Mark, you are guest number 295, and as regulars of the show know, my best guest yet. I can already tell. We are going to get into your story. I always ask my guests these questions. I always say, what are some fun facts about you? Things, strange facts, things that someone might not know or never know. But the reality is that your story, I don't know if it's a fun fact, but it's definitely an interesting fact. I will say one thing. Let's give you one fun fact first, that you love fresh baked bread. So I must say the smell and the heat of fresh baked bread is just incredible. Tell me about this love of fresh baked bread. And did you get fresh baked bread when you were in, is the word penitentiary is the right word, right?
No, I was in prison. A penitentiary is a level of prison. But no, I was in federal prison. And no, we did not get fresh baked bread. But when I was in high school, I worked in a bagel store, and I would get up at 4:00 in the morning. And I would go in, and my job was to make the bagels before high school. So I would boil them and stick my hand in the hot ovens and flip them over. And I think just from there, and just always had this love for that fresh bread. And I love to get up early in the morning, and I go for my runs, and the bakeries are smelling great. And, I just run all the carbs off, but I eat them like crazy.
I think there's a very interesting, certainly parallel. And we'll jump around a little bit, but make sure that your story gets told. But it strikes me that there are so many things that we take for granted. I certainly have lived that this year in terms of appreciating the most important thing in this entire world, which is health. Talk a little bit about the things that we take for granted, and why is it why does it have to take prison or heart surgery for us to wake up and realize that everything we've ever wanted or needed is right in front of us and right in front of our face?
Wow, it's such a heavy question, right, to get started. I love it.
That's an easy one. What do you mean?
Yeah, certainly I've often thought of my journey in prison and having time taken away from me as that appreciation mechanism. And not being able to go get some fresh bread or a slice of pizza or watch a movie or do things that you just want to do on your own schedule. It really does enlighten you to how precious and how wonderful everything is. And I'm proud to say, because I've been out a couple of years now, and I had some nervousness leaving about, was I going to keep all these lessons, or was it just going to wash away as life got normal again? And I'm really proud of myself. And especially after, as you mentioned, these last 18 months have been so stressful, that I've been able to keep the lessons that I learned while I was there, and appreciate time, and not worry about missing that traffic light or being a minute late or something, and really just, being with my friends and really being in the moment. One of the things about being in prison is you don't have a cell phone. And the cell phone becomes it's become this anchor for all of us. And how many times are we sitting in a conversation and our phone, buzzes and we go to check it, and it just, we don't give everyone that same attention that we really, that people deserve.
I'm sorry. Oh, it's too easy.
Yeah, I know. Low hanging fruit on that one. But yeah.
But I want to ask you a question before I forget. And it's an important one. How did you do that? Because people are going through it now, and I've said this throughout. When from 2020, I was like, my biggest fear is that we will go back to our bad old ways. We will go back to everything from the road rage to sweating the small stuff. So how did you do it?
The road that I took was not one that I would have ever imagined, especially when I went in, the day that I surrendered, which was September of 2017. I kind of figured that they would have a plan for me to rehabilitate me. And I was extraordinarily disappointed to find out that that's not the case. Prison is a business just like any other, and I was their client, and they probably want me to come back. So I had really had to figure it all out on my own. And fortunately for me, I was a child of that, let's call it personal development or self-esteem movement in the 90s. And I love Tony Robbins, and I love Jim Rohn and Wayne Dyer and all these people who are great. But the lessons never really stuck to me. And I believe it was because my self-esteem I didn't feel worthy of living the life of that quality. The first thing I really figured out while I was there, it took me a month or so to get really used to life, get used to the horrific sleeping conditions and the not such great food. But I really started to focus on gratitude, kind of almost what you were alluding to before. And I started just taking these walks of gratitude every day. And it's very hard to feel grateful when you're in prison. You're really at the lowest point of your life. And I would just come up with anything that I could to feel grateful for, that I did have a place to sleep, and I did have meals, and there was a pine tree that looked nice, and whatever it was, blood rushing through my body, that I could walk. And it took me some time. It took a couple of months before I really started to integrate it into my life. And I went from someone who was just wanting gratitude to actually being grateful. So I think that speaks to the question that you're asking, Joseph, and that is it's become who I am now. It's in my genetic code. I've unlocked it somehow. And I think I unlocked it through the repetition of constantly feeding my brain with words of gratitude. And I really believe that had I not kind of stumbled upon that, because that's almost how this whole journey unfolded, was like just stumbling into different things. And had I not, I don't think I would have gotten to where I was today. And for all of the self-help books that I read and all the courses I took that I never completed, I didn't skip really. Once I started these gratitude walks, I did not skip a day, regardless of rain or snow or heat. I did them every day for an hour, and it got easier and it got more fun. And I started being thankful for things that I really wasn't thankful for at the beginning. I've hurt my family, I've hurt my children, but yet I've been able to find gratitude for them being on their path that they need to take. So it really transformed me, and I still do it today. I don't quite do it as much, but I wake up every morning and I talk about gratitude, and I personally believe in God, so I talk to God about gratitude, and I say thank you for getting me to wake up this morning, and hopefully I can do some good today. And all day long, I'm just saying things that I'm grateful for, and it's just a beautiful way to live life.
There is well, first of all, our resident philosopher is here, and it's great because it's 9 o'clock is normally his bedtime. But Tom Morris says gratitude, like wisdom, sometimes find us only when much is stripped away. So he is on form as well. There is a beautiful prayer. Speaking of God, there is a beautiful prayer in the Jewish religion where you basically, the first thing you say when you wake up is basically thank you thank you for giving me another day. Uh, thank you for me being alive. That's the first thing you actually say in the morning. And I mean, I think that's the essence, right? The essence of whether you are religious or spiritual or neither of the above. It's like it's got to begin almost at the beginning. It's got to begin by just opening up your eyes, and instead of moaning and groaning and like I can't believe it's already 7 a.m. and got to get on that Metro North into the city or whatever the case may be. It's like, hey man, I got another day. I got another shot. Let me make the most of it.
Well, I am familiar with Modéani, so definitely familiar with that prayer.
That's the one.
Yep, and it's wonderful. And I can say it in Hebrew, although my Hebrew is not so great, but I could say that prayer, and I understand the meaning of it too. And it's just a wonderful way to start the day. And you know what? It's something that even if you just take 5 seconds at some point in the day when maybe things aren't going so great, find that one thing to be grateful for, you know, whether it's a person or just an experience or something. Just go back to that, and it really will change your whole vibration and change your whole state.
Yeah, there's something that you actually said, which I think warrants repetition and reinforcement, which is it has to, well, first of all, there's routine and habit, which are so important. I mean, but that's discipline. You know, that's discipline in terms of losing weight or being able to create a regimen or a routine. But when you said it's got to become part of your life, that's the missing link. That's the one actually, you know, and going back to diet, which sounds almost a bit superficial and frivolous compared to life changes. That's why most diets fail, because it doesn't become part of your life. It cannot be sustained. And so I almost feel like I'm asking you the question again, but how did you do it? You know, so it's like, what, I mean, you know, one of the things that you know, we obviously have to run extensive background checks on our guests. And we found out we found out this about you, that it turns out that, I mean, you love skiing, golf, tennis, hiking, and all forms of exercise. And here you are absolutely constrained and prevented from doing this in prison. You're restricted in terms of your walks. Your whole way of life, you know, has been curbed or curtailed. So how did you find the reserve and the strength then, the endurance then, and most importantly, how do you maintain that staying power now?
I was very motivated when I first got there. Frightened at the prospects of not fixing myself. All those years of feeling alone and desperate, even though maybe I had a lot of friends, but not really ever feeling comfortable in my skin, not really feeling the ability to be authentic and really show who Mark Moskowitz is. I think that really scared me and got me very motivated for change. I mean, when you enter prison, you know, and you'd be surprised how many people don't want to change. They want to blame others and not take responsibility, as we'll talk about later. But, you know, so for me, I knew that I had no choice but to change. Because I knew there were people in my life who I hurt and that I wanted to get back into my life. So I was very motivated, but, you know, and I don't actually look, you said something before about religious and spirituality, and I don't really look at those as mutually exclusive. So, you know, for me, I do believe that when you start yourself on the path and you show, call it the universe, call it God, that you are committing, that the path opens up in front of you. You know, I think Martin Luther King said, take the first step in faith. Don't worry about where the staircase goes. Just take the first step in faith. So to me, it's like when you take that step, when you trust that it's all going to unfold correctly for you, things just happen. And in doing these walks consistently over the course of time, people in the prison started to understand what I was doing and wanted to join in. So it kind of became this group thing, and still doing it on my own, but also we started talking about it. So instead of me hanging out with the guys who were playing poker all day or watching TV or wasting their time. I was hanging out with the guys who were reading, reading books and looking to better themselves and journaling. So, I think you start to build that ecosystem around you, and I don't look at losing weight or exercise as being trivial. I think it's a very important part of our mental health, our spiritual health, and our obviously physical health. As you start to go to the gym and as you start to become friends with people who aren't going out at night and staying out till 2:00 in the morning, they're living a healthier lifestyle, then yes, you will just automatically start losing some of that weight and starting to feel better and more energized. So I think it's the life that you put yourself into. It's that ecosystem of your life that helps you keep it.
It's a conscious, deliberate decision, and I think that's a key. That's a key point. You've got to be able to make that. You've got to be able to see the signs, and how many of us are blind to those signs? Obviously, it wasn't hard for you to recognize because you were actually in prison. Let's talk about that for a moment, without rehashing the story, because I'm more interested in where you are now as opposed to where you were. But tell us the Cliff Notes version of what happened. Successful Wall Street investment banker, and that shock of somehow knowing that you're going to prison. And part two of that was, at any point or for how long was there in fact blame until you got to this point of taking total responsibility?
It's the thing. It's amazing what you learn when you do sit in a little bit of silence, and something that I preach is to take some time every day and be conscious of where your life is and where your life is going. Because I think that I really lost that. Had I maybe sat down and realized in the path that I was veering, I might have been able to stop myself. But I was fairly damaged person. Obviously, as my business started to fail, and as my marriage was failing, and life was kind of unraveling for me, there was a level of desperation and a very deep level of loneliness, in that my own walls that I had built up, I had no one that I could trust. I had a lot of people in my life, friends and family members, and there was not one person in this world that I could feel that I could trust with what was going on in my life. So it was very lonely. And really, up until the day I was sentenced, I did not think I was going to jail. I pled guilty in March of 2017, and I was sentenced in July. And I really did not think I was going to jail, but I thought that I would maybe just get home confinement or something. But I was sentenced at 33 months, and then I surrendered a couple of months after that in September. And the way that I came to responsibility was really through gratitude and then self-esteem. Because what I've learned is that when your self-esteem is unhealthy, as mine was, we become very ego-driven beings. And our ego wants to protect us, and our ego wants us to make us feel good. Therefore, we look outside of ourselves to blame others for our misgivings or for our mistakes. So I would say, if I put a timeline on it, I would probably say around March or April of the next year, 2018, is where I really started to understand self-esteem, and that dovetailed into this level of responsibility that I've taken. And there's a chapter in the book talking about extreme responsibility and really how when you feel good about yourself and you know that you own your own power, that you just don't ever give anybody, it's all on you. Every good decision, every bad decision. And it's this wonderful, powerful feeling, because Joseph, you're a great guy, but you can't control how I react to something you say to me. You could say what might seem like the worst thing in the world to me. Oh, you're a felon and you're this and you're a bad guy. But I know who I am. It's me. It's on me to interpret and make a choice of how I want to feel about what you're saying. So up to that, I would blame everybody, my parents, my growing up, and my ex-wife, and anybody I could blame. But once my self-esteem got in check and got healthy, and really that was just from reading some books and being very fortunate that the universe gave me some great books to look at. It was just this amazing path of responsibility. And if I could take another second, I would I think my parental relationships were difficult. I grew up in a home that would have looked pretty idyllic to most people, but there was some emotional neglect there. My father worked very hard, and my mother did her thing, and I was a third of three children, and I didn't get a lot of that emotional support. But that was my perception, and perception is not always the reality. And now that I'm healthier, and now that I've been able to heal those relationships, I see them in a different light. So taking this responsibility is it's just the path to immense happiness and success and just joy in life.
I mean, you said so many important points, and even the very last. And by the way, you can take as much time as you need to be able to tell your story and speak your truth. And right at the end, you mentioned the word joy. It's not a word that you would typically think would be included, but it is probably one of the secrets of life, longevity, and true happiness. I want to go back to this idea to talk about self-esteem itself. And I'm not going to ask you what the Wikipedia or the dictionary.com definition is, but what is your definition of self-esteem? Because we hear a lot of words, synonyms, self-confidence, self-awareness, identity. But what is self-esteem, and what is its enemy? Is it in fact arrogance? Is it hubris? So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think what I struggled with so much, I alluded to it before a little bit, was being my authentic self, and feeling comfortable in my own skin. So for my personal definition of self-esteem is that I can come on a show like this and be as raw and honest with you and your audience as I can be, because that is really what it means to me, is to have that inner confidence, that inner peace, that knowing that you're a good person, that you're trying hard to be the best person you can be, and I have bad days and bad moments, but I feel wonderful. And I think by any stretch of the imagination, my life is not as great on paper as people would think it could be, but I just know that I'm moving in the right direction, and following the passions that I'm feeling. There was this moment in prison where I knew that I would be doing this, that I would be writing a book and trying to help people find their happiness within themselves. For me, everything was always externally based. All of my joy, I was looking outside of myself for excitement and for fun, and looking to other people to tell me how I felt about myself. So self-esteem is knowing inside of you that you have the power to do anything you want. You can, and you could just wake up in the morning and just feel this love for yourself, and that you're moving towards goals and purposes in the direction that you want to go. So I don't know if there's actually a definition in there. There was, it's just really good. It just feels really good. So
I have two comments on that. One is, I think there was a real clear distinction between the word self and inner. And that's what I picked up on, because I think there's a difference between inner confidence and self-confidence, because self-confidence can lead, especially when you get into perception and you get into ego, into overconfidence, and humility can become hubris, and arrogance can creep in. But inner is important, because I think inner is exactly as it sounds. It's not about the external, as I said in my soliloquy, social media, societal. It's not about how you are seen and perceived to others and by others. It's about how you feel about yourself, and inner peace and self-esteem. To me, there's something very, very beautiful about that. The other point I wanted to make was, I've spoken to many people who've gone through similar experiences, and there can be sometimes a defensiveness, and there isn't anything there. Tom actually says the odd thing about blame is that it feels like self-defense while it's really self-harm. But then I've also witnessed, with unfortunately, whether it's friends, colleagues, or even guests who've gone through periods of rehab and tragedy, that there's this, surrendering and almost oversharing that comes out. And I don't see that with you either, which is like this idea of needing and having to be submissive and say, here are all the steps, and I'm just gonna, just pour it all out, whether you want it or not. And I don't get that with you. I don't get the fact that you are here and I'm there, or you are there and I'm here. I just see it as two people having a conversation, and identifying about things that we can both identify with, like things like joy.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really nice. And I've been writing a lot, not just for the book, but I do a lot of writing and I post on LinkedIn quite a bit. And my style has really become where I'm using my own self, things that happen to me on an everyday basis as the lessons that I've learned. And I'm training for the New York City Marathon and raising money for a charity. So a lot of beautiful. A lot of times I will, talk about thoughts that I had on a Saturday, which are my long run days, and some of the pitfalls that go with running and training, and I think it's this style of writing which does lend itself to more peers as opposed to a teacher and a student, and I don't consider myself that. I just consider someone who's really taken the time to learn the lessons that life has thrown his way. I have not overlooked the lessons that come to me. And every day, my brain is still looking for these lessons that come. And I just think I share them in my writing. And it's really fun. And I love it. And I'm just excited to keep going.
Well, I've just put that link into the comments as well. And if you want to support Mark on his efforts, you can just click on that link, or cut and paste what you see in front of you. By the way, Mark, looking at the numbers, you are very close to your goal.
Yes, we're getting there. Please appreciate it. I wish we could take the JAFFE dollars. I'm sorry, but maybe next year.
Yeah, I mean, well, as soon as you can accept JAFFE coin, I'm very generous with my JAFFE coin. But it's fantastic. I mean, talk about again, this beautiful transition from loving, the outdoors and running and hiking and skiing and tennis and being so constricted and constrained. And now, in less than a month, you're going to be running the New York Marathon. I've run the New York Marathon twice. I was one and done, and then I was two and done, but I'm really done now. Okay. It's an incredible race. Have you? I assume you haven't done it before?
No, I've run in New York a few times, and I've run New Jersey a few times.
So, okay, so you're I'm not telling you anything.
I do get the experience, and it's wonderful, and it is this freeing concept to be able to go and do that. And I'm still on what's known as supervised release, and in the federal system they call it supervised release. In the state it's called probation. So I still have to check in with my probation officers once a month, and I have to let them know when I'm leaving the state, things like that. So I do have some handcuffs still, but for the most part, my life is pretty much my own. But it's just, it's just wonderful to be able to do something like this. And, my father passed away from cancer while I was in prison. And I actually had a very close friend who also did as well. So that was really tough for me. And
sorry to hear it.
Yeah. I mean, it was really difficult to deal with. And, my father's passing ended up as I write in the book, turned out to be somewhat of a gift, because it made me I started practicing a little more Judaism while I was in there, saying Kaddish for him for quite a long time. But but I just want to. I know so many people suffer from this, and I want to help any way I can. And for me, I don't mind running. I don't mind putting my body on the line to raise some money. And I'm going to have a little bit of a fun thing. A couple of weeks now, I'm going to let the audience choose my next endurance event. So that'll be on LinkedIn. I'm going to come up with four different events, and I'll let the audience choose that one. So so tune in.
Well, I was just going to say, when you said you have to check in regularly with essentially your parole officer, I was going to say, as long as it isn't at the 3 mile, 8 mile, 12 mile, and 18 mile marker. Studio audience seem to like that one as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll be okay for 26.2 miles. In the few moments that we have left, and then we're going to bring on Deborah. We'll let you sit in the green room, and then we'll bring you back for a final conversation with Deborah. I want to give you an opportunity, as you also, as an author and a speaker myself, and as you get more comfortable, and just also as you go through your own evolution, I want to give you the platform and the stage to tell us a little bit more about this movement, because, the total responsibility movement. What is total responsibility? What is the total responsibility movement? Give us a little bit of a sneak peek on what we might expect from the book and the keynote.
The total responsibility movement is kind of what it sounds like. It is stopping playing the blame game. It is making sure that you own your power, and that when you make a decision, you own that decision, good, bad, indifferent. And I have found for me that as I've taken more responsibility, I've also been more careful with the choices I make, because it's very easy when you're playing the blame game to make a bad choice and then say, oh, it's not my fault, it's that person's fault. But when you know that it's on you, and when you know that you're going to take that responsibility, you take a few extra minutes to write down the pros and cons, and you take a few minutes to really make sure you're making the right decision. So you take that conscious moment. And so the movement is all about that. And I think that I can guarantee you that you will be a happier person when you take responsibility for all of your actions and own your power.
There's no question. And I think there is a clear business application and and connection, right? Which is making decisions frivolously, or making decisions without thinking through the consequences, and that idea of, but where does the buck really stop? And I think there are many business executives that can still hide behind their department, their division, their organization, their boss, and it can be buried in the bureaucracy, or even the idea of a rude customer service agent. No one's really going to tell. You say to that flight attendant, give me your employee number, and they're like, yeah, whatever, and they know you're not going to do anything with it. But total responsibility is that everyone owns the customer, right? Owns that outcome and can share in that outcome together.
Yes. We'll all be a happier society.
And
in my opinion.
And we'll all be happier as well. I want to make sure that, Tom, who will give us his definition, he says, self-esteem is a wise and proper self-assessment and positive valuation that does not depend on external. So again, the key word here is inner. So thank you, Mark, for coming into the inner sanctum, into the inner studio. Relax in the green room, and we'll see you in about 10 minutes or so. And been really, really fantastic talking with you.
Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And now it is time to welcome our creator, Deborah Bibon. I'm getting better and better at pronouncing it. Let me tell you a few things about Deborah. She got such a, like, there were so many things. I was like, wait a second. She's an artist. She's an art teacher. She's a poet. She's a photographer. She's a writer. She's a international best-selling author of Sacred Heart's Rising Sparks of Light. She lost 200 pounds, for God's sake. And she's got, I guess it's a clubhouse group called the Skin and Mind. I'm in and there's a question I have to ask her about her voice. One of the things also that's pretty cool is she writes inspiring, personalized poems for anyone who may need healing, whether you need healing, whether it's for someone else. I guess this is a cameo with heart, or cameo for heart. Let's say hello to Deborah. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm happy you're here, although right now when I look at the two camera angles, it looks like I might be able to eat you. It's like you're so tiny. So
I had to bring room for my art.
Your art, in many respects, I feel is like your background and your email. It's just filled with. I'll give you the what I call the voice of God angle here. It's just filled with wonder and awe and it's busy, but it's not noisy, and I love that. So what I'm going to do, I'll come back for just a brief moment. I'm going to give you the floor, the stage. And I believe that tonight you are going to be performing a spoken word piece on healing your personal heartland with the use of art. Love how the word, by the way, let me tell you one thing before you get going, and then I will disappear. Here's a fun fact about me. Before I even started my first company, I started a roadshow, a creative roadshow called The Battle for the Heart. And I capitalized the A of heart because I felt that there was too much science in marketing and digital marketing, and there wasn't enough art. And clearly the heart and the art were just, it's not a coincidence that the word lives inside it. So go for it. The floor is yours, and I will see you when you are done.
Thank you. Love is not what you have, but what you give. And the art of love is who you share it with. Neil Diamond. Have you ever gone through just the pains of getting started? Well, I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey. What it was like for me in my mind when I needed to write one night, but I felt stuck on where to start. I'm going to let you know this is my process. This is a message actually from myself to myself that I choose to share with you. Depressed, procrastination, suppressed, distracted, distressed. Take action. Just get started. Somebody needs to hear and see your voice. Just do the thing. Just make the choice. Just do it. Do not stop. Just one step. Just one step is all it takes. Just one finger push of the button. Just one flick. Just a muscle twitch, followed by another and the next. Then another and another until it starts to become a pattern, a rhythm of key clicking, button pushing, finger flicking, keyboard rattling, sentence starting, paragraph making, chapter ending, novel publishing, book signing, author greeting, journey of self-discovery. It all started exactly where it ended. One thought of greatness. We are all but a muscle twitch away. Steve Harvey. I apologize for that. We are all just a huge ball of distracted twitches and itches of greatness. It's time to shine, time to show up, time to speak up. Poetry at the wrong time is madness, and poetry at the right time is magic by Atticus. My name is Deborah Vivo. I'm Canadian, and I'm going to say a boot, and process a lot. I am actually an angel interpreter. I'm a translator and a guide as well as a meditation guru. I've had more than a second chance in life. I used to weigh 385 pounds, and I've lost 200. I was imprisoned within my own body, and a lot of people don't know what it's like. I had a near-death experience last year. I lost 4 liters of blood in under 20 minutes, and since then I have been given the message to live life like I made it and completely live on purpose. And what happened, and it's taking full responsibility. It used to be it happened to me, and then it happened from me. It didn't happen to me or even for me. It happened from me, and I've learned how important it is to use my voice. I am actually an international best-selling published author, an amazing anthology by Brenda Hammond called Sacred Hearts Rising, Spark the Light. And my chapter is entitled Choices and Forgiveness, and how I actually found out there's 3 types of choices in forgiveness. And I learned just from Jay Shetty Genius Community, there's 1, conditional, then there's transformational, and then there's unconditional. And that's the forgiveness I gave to myself. And I'm ready to publish my 2nd book, and I am just so excited. And I have a blueprint in how I healed my personal heartland with art, and that is articulate, reframe, and transform. And just a little tiny bit more. My name is Deborah. I've never quite finished speaking on Clubhouse. There's layers to our life, just like there's paintings. And if you see the paintings behind me, I love showing people the rawness of me. So there is a rawness and a realness of showing the layers of what. So I am complete. I'm a law changer, an artist, a writer, a photographer, and thank you.
I have to say that I love how the Clubhouseian tactics are coming in, which is, I'm complete. I'm never complete. I'm muting my mic. We will not do anything like that. We will allow you to speak as you did. Thank you for that. We have Mark back, and I must say that, I don't know whether that was planned or not, talking about second chances, but I mean, from my soliloquy through Mark's story, through your poetry, I guess there was a real red thread tonight.
Yeah. It's absolutely amazing that Mark came on, and just everything that he said, I felt, and I just felt like I have been imprisoned in my own body, and a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people do, and it's just absolutely incredible how in synchronicity it is.
What did you think, Mark?
It's beautiful, and everyone has their own journey, and they're all just so special. And I love hearing your story, Deborah, and it's amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Now, Deborah, there is one story that I do have to ask you about. In addition to, I mean, we could talk about losing 200 pounds, but I want to know what you did to use your voice in order to change laws in all of Canada in terms of how domestic abuse and rape calls are first responded to.
Yeah, so that's a huge one, and my earphones butted out, and like everything is happening. It's wonderful, and I'm going through it. So I went through sexual assault 4, maybe 5 years ago, and when I called, and I'm just stating, I was living in a very fluent white community where I lived, and I assumed that I would get service. And when I didn't, it are you there? Sorry.
No, we're here. We're just giving you the full screen.
Thank you. So what had happened is I ended up being interviewed by the officer, and it was one male lone officer who came to my door, and it was very difficult for me to just open that door, and everything else just disintegrated. I just decided to use my voice and say, if this happened to me so easily, how many other people has this happened to? And where I work, there's a process, and I say process a lot. And where something doesn't work, I don't just bitch about a problem. I think of 3 solutions, and then I bring it up to the highest manager. And if that doesn't work, I go higher. And if that doesn't work, I go higher. And that's what happened. I went to the staff sergeant. It didn't happen. So I just said, okay, well, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. And so I sat on that, and I actually went to the global news in Edmonton, where I used to live, and went to a news reporter. I said, this is what happened to me. I filed a formal complaint, and I just wanted to see what they wouldn't do. I ended up having a 3-part series on Global Edmonton of how rape and domestic violence cases are actually handled or not handled. There isn't a process. There wasn't a process. And because I stood up and I used my voice, there now is in Edmonton and all of Canada. And I want to get this more global, but I just really feel that they need some more empathy. And because of me, there is empathy. They printed out a card exactly what I needed at that time. And if he just had given me that card, I would have the empathy, even if he didn't have the training. So that's how I changed laws, by using my voice. In the book I wrote, there's 3 types of forgiveness, and I chose to forgive myself first because I think that's the hardest. That's one of the hardest steps, and getting started, just like in the poem, getting started and then forgiveness. So my name is Deborah. I'm never done speaking.
You don't have to say that on video, but
I know. I just love it though.
But it's kind of cool. Mark, did you want to respond at all or add anything? Because I certainly have lots of thoughts from what I just heard.
Again, that's incredible. And the fact that you're tenacious and that you're not stopping until you get what you need is a very high form of self-esteem and self-love, and that you're also doing it for other people too is an incredible purpose, and congratulations on being able to be able to say you did that. It's amazing, really incredible.
I wanted to add a couple of thoughts. One is, we're all very familiar with the I guess it was the Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. But suddenly I was like, wait a second, Deborah, I think you've just taken that to the next level, which is the quote, I go higher. So forget about going high. You need to go higher, and you need to keep going. And that was one thing I took away from your story. The other thing, of course, it's almost uncanny, the parallels with Mark. You spoke about forgiving yourself, but the other one is the first thing Mark said tonight, which stuck with me, was they didn't have a plan for me. There was no plan for you. So both of you created the plan. You took charge. You took full responsibility, both of you, and you created the plan that now will help many, many other people. So it's funny sometimes how you never know a creator, a guest come together, and they have a lot more in common than you thought.
Beautiful.
I love how creator works, and I love how, if you want to say God or Jesus or angels, I love they speak to me. And there's a song you got to listen to. It's She Talks to Angels by the Crows. You got to listen to that, because everything about that is about me, and I think it's about everybody else. Are we listening? So when you were saying a prayer and you were telling me how you prayed in the morning, I learned this from Kyle Gray, and I don't know if you know who he is. He's in Scotland. I love Scottish accents, and he's the one who actually saved my life. I lost 4 liters of blood in under 20 minutes. And just something came up for me right now as I prayed. It says, for as we have many members of one body, and all members have no It just popped up. So God works in beautiful ways. I have to read this. 1 second. Oh, there's an ad.
Well, Deborah, while you're doing that, I forgot that I have to do one thing in our time left over, and I'm going to put you back into the green room, and you also froze for a second. Mark, I always do one thing, which is to put a quote, and I forgot to mention the quote for you. This was your quote for tonight. Every moment of your life is a second chance. And I love that. And that is from Rick Price. So that was your quote of the episode. Every moment of your life is a second chance. Deborah, you wanted to read something.
I wasn't meant to be read. It was just an interruption.
No worries. Well, I will, listen, we are on the hour, and it is time for me to rest my weary voice. But there's only one more person that has to join us tonight, which is Chuck Norris, and he will tell us what he thinks of Deborah Bibor and Mark Moskowitz.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
There you go. I will be back tomorrow at 9 o'clock, of course. Take care, everyone. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Deborah.
Beautiful.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Wonderful.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.